All praise to the Most High God.
Praise.
All right, so it's Tuesday night. We coming to you live with a class about Purim. Pronounce it right. Tonight's class is about Purim. We're gonna go over the history of Purim, how it came to be. We're gonna get into it. As try not to be too long winded here. But all praise to the Most High. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get the first scripture. We're gonna start in Romans chapter 15 and verse 4.
Romans chapter 15, verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
So everything written in the Bible was written before our learning, for the Israelites' learning. Let's get the next scripture. Go to Sirach chapter 33 and verse 9. Book of Ecclesiasticus, which is Sirach, chapter 33 and verse 9.
Book of Ecclesiasticus chapter 33, verse 9. Some of them he have made high days and hallowed them, and some of them hath he made ordinary days.
That's right there. So that goes pulling that scripture to show Most High gave his people days as well. And that he does have days which are high days and some are just ordinary days. But God did not leave his people idle. So one of the days that he made high we're going to talk about today here is Purim. We're going to get into the history. We're going to start from the beginning and work our way through. Like I said, I'm trying not to be long-winded, but I'm going to teach tonight. Go to Esther chapter 1. Let's go ahead and get to the beginning. So we know the Purim takes place with our elder mother, Esther. Esther chapter 1. We're going to start at verse 1.
Book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 120 provinces. Though that in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces, being before him.
So in his 3rd year of King Ahasuerus' reign, he held a celebration to show how mighty his kingdom was. Go ahead. Ahasuerus, he would soon be the husband, the king, over Esther, which we're going to get to. Go ahead.
Verse 4. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days.
So this is a long celebration. Go ahead.
And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace.
So he invited everybody to come feast with him, from the greatest of his nation unto the smallest. Go ahead.
Verse 6. Where were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rings, and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver upon a pavement of red and blue, and white and black marble.
Go ahead.
And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse from one another.
Jump down to verse 9.
Verse 9. Also Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the woman in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus.
No, pay attention to that part right there. It says Vashti, the queen, she made a feast in the king's house. So Vashti, while the king having his celebration, Vashti, the queen, is having her own celebration amongst the women, and she's having it in the king's house. So to show y'all just Everything belongs to the king. Go ahead.
On verse 10. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, and Habona, Bigtha, and Agathah, Zathar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served the presence of Ahasuerus the king.
So it said he was married with wine. He was happy. He was enjoying himself. Go ahead.
To bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look upon.
So it came a point during his celebration, he wanted to show off his wife. And when it said a crown royal, let's get that because it actually talks about it. Go to Esther chapter 2 and get verse 17. I'll jump over that real quick, then we're going to come back.
The book of Esther, chapter 2, verse 17.
Let's see what the crown royal is.
And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti.
All right, so basically the crown royal shows that she is the highest favorite amongst all the women. If the king has other wives, she is the top. That's what it meant. That's what the crown royal means. So Vashti was the king's favorite, so much that she was made queen over all the women. Now, go to verse 12 in Esther chapter 1.
Book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 12. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Kashina, Shathar, Amathar, Tarshish, Mears, Marsina, and Mumakan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face and which set the first in the kingdom.
So these are all his wise men. These are like his counselors close to him. When Vashti refused to come, they were there. So let's go a little bit on that because there's nothing new under the sun. Go to Proverbs 14 and 1. Because there's a spirit that Vashti carried. This is why I wanted to hark on the fact that she was in the king's house, though having her own party. And he called her and she refused to come. Go to Proverbs 14 and 1.
We are at the book of Proverbs, chapter 14, verse 1. Every wise woman buildeth her house.
Scripture says a wise woman builds her house. One of those ways she builds her house is by honoring her husband. Okay? She knows her husband comes first. And whatever he commands her, she follows. Go ahead.
But the foolish plucketh it down with her hands.
But the foolish will pluck it down with her hands. And what that means is she will dishonor her husband. She will disrespect her own home, which is what Vashti did here. It's made clear in the scripture that this is the king's home. She's hosting the party, and she's become so high-minded, and for some odd reason, we know what it is, that she actually told this man that she's not coming in the house that he put her in. She said she's not coming. So this is a wicked woman, a foolish woman will pluck down her own house with her own hands. And that's what she did. And we've seen that so many times today. But in the beginning of the scripture says a wise woman will build up a wise woman buildeth her house, meaning she puts in. She works to keep her house in order. She knows her place. And this is why Esther's spirit is such a beautiful thing. Let's go back. Go give verse 17. I'm sorry. Go to 1 Timothy chapter 2 and 12. 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 12.
1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence.
That's a righteous woman. She doesn't usurp authority over her husband. Let's go back. Esther chapter 1, start at verse 17.
The book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 17.
I'm sorry, start at 15.
Verse 15. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law? Because she have not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains.
So I told you, even back then, even the heathens knew. I mean, this actually is actually common in most cultures for the man to rule his household. It's Esau that does it the other way around because of their hatred for God. But most cultures, the woman honors the man. Go ahead.
And also, I want to touch on that her not listening to her husband is sin. That's why they trying to find what judgment for her.
Exactly.
Verse 16. And Memucan answered before the king and the princess, Vashti the queen have not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus.
So they say she's not only done this wrong to you, but this is going to affect the whole kingdom. Let's see what he mean by that. He says this not just going to affect you, king. It's going to affect the whole kingdom. Now get first. Actually, we already got it because that was that First Timothy. The reason that what they saying is because now all women, because Vashti is the queen. If they don't do something about this, we don't check this, she's going to single-handedly cause disruption in this kingdom and cause it to fall. Because remember, if you look at any script, if you look at any of the stories, a lot about our ancestors, the greatest weapon to bring down the kingdom is the woman. Look at David. Look at Solomon. Look at Samson. A woman, if she's, as a matter of fact, you go even to come this way. What did Willie Lynch say? To break down the black family, who do you start with? The man. You start with the woman. So that's what they were saying. Like, we gotta do something about this because she will destroy this kingdom. We need a righteous woman in her place. Because remember what the scripture said, a wise woman build her house. A wicked pluck it down. So they would look like, okay, this is not just evil to you, king. Everybody gonna suffer for this woman's disrespect. Now, I'm trying to lose myself. Where I'm at. Now I'll go to Esther 1:17.
Esther chapter 1, verse 17. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husband in their eyes, when it shall be reported. The king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not.
They said she came not. It's a bad look, king. Go ahead.
Likewise, shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath.
Go ahead.
If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persian and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she.
So what they did is like, we're not gonna have this. We gotta bring her down. We need to get a woman in there that's gonna be a great example to the other women. And you see it in today. Look at the Christian church. It's full of women and feminine men. The men are leaving the churches because the women, what it creates is that's what you see. The women ruling the household. And that causes everything to go out. They saying before we had that problem, we gonna stop cut the snake off cut the serpent off at the head. Let's not even let this thing get out of hand. Because what you'll have is a rebellious nation. You have the independent woman movement. That's what we in right now. That's why I was going with that church analogy just now. You're gonna have the independent woman, the feminist movement.
Right.
That's where you're gonna be at. And we living through it right now. No man want that. It's a sad thing. Let's get back to it. Verse 19. Verse 20.
And when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the while shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small.
Said the poor women, the poor marriages, and the rich marriages all gonna be the same. They're gonna honor their husbands. Go ahead.
And the same pleased the king and the princes. And the king did according to the word of Mimikin.
Verse 22.
For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man shall bear rule in his own house.
See that? The man's supposed to rule the house. Go ahead.
And that it should be published according to the language of every people.
So everybody in language. So King Ahasuerus had many nations in his kingdom, all different languages. Okay. And the Israelites were among those people. And a lot of people don't realize, the king didn't realize that. I had Israelites there. No, we kept different laws. We was different from them. So that's why he said, publish it with all the nations, in every household. The woman shall honor the husband. Okay. This is why Esther is so important, because Esther came in was that symbol of what a woman's supposed to be. What we gonna get to. She was that symbol. Now get Esther chapter 2, start at 1. Get Galatians 5 and 9 first. Let's get that first. We're gonna come back. Galatians 5 and 9.
Galatians chapter 5, verse 9.
Just real quick. Just that scripture.
A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump.
See, it's a little bit of wickedness, a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of spoil, that rotten, little mold on there, ruin the whole thing. So you got to cast it out. Okay? Cast out those wicked spirits. Now go to Esther chapter 2, start at 1.
Book of Esther chapter 2, verse 1. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servant that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Heges, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the woman, and let their things for purification be given them. And let the maiden which pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti.
So they got saying, let's get women who have never been married. Let's get them purified for the king. We need to, so basically saying, we're gonna find you a new wife, king. We're gonna find somebody that's up to your standards, that can lead the women in the right direction. Go ahead.
And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan, the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite.
Now Mordecai was very respected amongst the Jews at that time. Go ahead.
Who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with the Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter.
So Mordecai was Esther's uncle. Or cousin? Cousin, I'm sorry. She was his cousin. But he was like a father to her. Go ahead.
For she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together to Shushan the palace, to the custody of Hegai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Hegai, keeper of the woman. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her her things for purification.
So why y'all think Esther pleased the king? Esther kept the commandments. Esther's righteousness was showing forth because of her cadence. That's how she carried herself. That's what gave her favor. So it was Mordecai's idea that Esther should be the next queen. Go ahead.
With such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids unto the best place of the house of the women. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it.
See that? So they didn't know what Esther's nationality because Mordecai told her not to show it. Go ahead. So remember, y'all, that's honor. She was honoring her because Mordecai was her head. If you go back, whenever our forefathers told their wives to do something, the wives followed instruction. That's how they kept the commandments. A lot of women ask, well, if he told her to lie, ain't that a sin? She is keeping the commandment by honoring him. Okay? That's her Lord. Go ahead.
And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her.
So he was checking up on her because she's going through a purification. She's going through it. She's basically being tested to. It's like she's being tested to see if she can be the next queen. But it's not just her. She's up against other women. Go ahead.
Now, when every maid's turn was come to go in the king's go into King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the woman, for so were the days of their purification accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of mirth, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purifying of the women.
So she had all the women had to be purified before marriage with the oils. 12 months. Go ahead.
Then thus came every maiden unto the king. Whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house.
Jump down to 15.
Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Hagar, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the woman, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her.
That's her righteousness. They say she obtained favor. When she went before the king, she was found blameless. They couldn't see nothing wrong with her. Go ahead.
So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus into his house, whirl in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign.
Go ahead.
And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti.
So this is Esther was the ideal woman. She outshined everybody, and he made her queen instead of Vashti. So basically, she got the job. She's now the queen. Now go to Esther chapter 3, start at 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 3, verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him.
So afterwards, the king had appointed his new, basically second in command, Haman, over all that was under the king. Okay, now Haman was wicked, evil. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence.
Now we know that there's scriptures that do say obedience to those that are above you. You know, the scriptures that show you how to deal with those that are in rulership over you. So, was Mordecai in sin? No, because in this case, this man wanted them to bow in reverence, like worship. This wasn't like doing the job your boss told you to do. This was bowing to him as a god. So that's why Mordecai didn't bow to him. That's what I'm gonna touch on. Give verse 3.
Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said to Mordecai, Why transgresseth thou the king's commandment?
So they said, why are you transgressing the king's commandment? Because remember, like you said, this is commandment. It's not our commandment. Go to, let's get it real quick. Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. Because it's get that one scripture. Every captivity we've ever been in, someone has tried to get us, they have tried to get us to break our commandments. Go ahead.
Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9. The thing that have been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. Mm-hmm. And there is no new thing under the sun.
There's no new thing under the sun. Let me show you. Go to 1 Maccabees chapter 2 and 21. 21 and 22. Get those real quick. Because it's the same thing with Mattathias, which we touched on a couple of nights ago. No, Sabbath. Go ahead.
You said which?
First Maccabees chapter. I'm sorry, let me read it again, so I don't give you the wrong one. First Maccabees chapter 2, and I want 21 and 22.
The book of First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 21. God forbid that we should forsake the laws, the law, and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left.
That's what he wanted. He wanted Mordecai to go from his religion. This wasn't just a service. This was basically worship. Go ahead.
Verse 23.
Oh, that was it on that? Yeah. All right, that's it. So just showing that it's nothing new under the sun. It was the same thing then, and the same thing after that. Same thing now. Go back. Esther 3 and 4.
Esther chapter 3, verse 4. How it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew.
So see that they didn't even know he was a Jew. Remember, everybody bowing to him, just like in Maccabees, when the other servants, the other nations, did that which the king commanded, because they didn't have no foundation. They understand that the Jews was different. So they like, well, he say he a Jew, but what that mean? Why he still refused to bow to you? Go ahead.
And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai.
So you see that? So the Most High put a spirit on Haman. It's because this is all God doing this. So Haman getting PO'd at Mordecai, now he's saying, let's just do away with all of them, because he's not gonna bow. Let's kill all of them, because that's a custom, right? That's what he's a Jew. None of them gonna bow to me. He like, man, let's kill all of them, because look, his pride is heavy. The king then gave him power over everything under the king. So he's saying this is what he wants. Go ahead.
Verse 7. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast that is the lot before Haman, from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar.
Go ahead.
And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all the people.
So the king don't even know his wife is a Jew. Go ahead.
Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it unto the king's treasuries.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna pay 10,000. Go ahead.
And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemed good to thee.
Said, do with them as you would. To the king. So the king, he like, Go ahead. If you say it, I trust your word. Go ahead, kill. If this people should be destroyed, do to them what you please. Now notice it says that Haman is the Jews' enemy, not the king necessarily, just Haman. Go ahead.
Then were the king's scribe called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written, and sealed with the king's ring.
So he sent out a decree to destroy the Jews. Go ahead.
And verse 13. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is in the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
Go ahead.
The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day.
Go ahead.
The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan, the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed.
So y'all see that? So he sent out a decree all over to have the Jews, the Israelites, killed. Don't that sound familiar though? Ain't that the same thing? Was I want to butcher his get his name wrong. What was the king name that wanted to kill Christ? I can't remember right now. Yeah,
was it Caesar?
It was not Caesar. Who was it? He wanted to kill.
Yeah,
he wanted to stop Christ
from all the babies.
Yeah. Herod.
Yeah,
there you go.
Herod, yeah.
That was Herod. It also happened before that. Go to Exodus chapter 1 and start at 7. And it's gonna happen here. They're gonna start saying when they start seeing how mighty of a nation we starting to become. Because right now, we're in our rebuilding phase like a football team. We ain't a threat just yet. But it's coming. They see it, but it ain't rattled the cages enough yet. But when it do, they're gonna start doing it again. That's what the Most High say. When they gonna take, what Christ said, when they take you into the synagogues, when they take you before the judges, it's gonna happen. So it happened. It happened here. Happened then. Remember they was killing them in Mattathias' time. Let's get that out. Exodus chapter 1, read verse 7.
Exodus chapter 1, verse 7. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them.
Now, no, this is actually a time before our people even was keeping they weren't even keeping the law at this time. This is when the Hebrews was in Egypt. But he still saw them as a threat. Go ahead.
Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we.
He said they more and mighty, they strong. Look at these people. And no matter how hard we work them, they keep on multiplying. I think Planned Parenthood and all that stuff was put in place. They try to decrease our numbers, but no matter how much they do to us, we just won't disappear. Civilizations have gone extinct, but not us. And a lot of us die every year. But yet, here we are. It's the same thing. So go ahead.
Verse 10. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
Verse 11.
Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Python and Ramses.
So don't that sound like what Haman's doing? They set taskmasters over them to afflict them. beat them with whips. If you read on, it talks about how they made them work vigorously to destroy them. It was hard bondage. So let's go back. So just showing this. This has been the Most High say there's no new thing under the sun, because when it comes to us, history keep repeating itself. Same way we've been delivered from every captivity, we've been put through the ringer and then delivered. It's gonna be the same thing here, because it's the same thing here in Esther. That's where Purim comes from. Go ahead. Where we at? Let me. Yeah, Esther chapter 4, part 1.
Book of Esther, chapter 4, verse 1. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and bitter cry.
So Mordecai, he felt responsible for this, because now he's like, man, what have I done? He thinking that because he was the one that wouldn't bow. Go ahead.
And came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth.
Go ahead, verse 3.
And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was a great mourning among the Jews.
So all the Jews was afraid now. So now it's the Haman's commandment has reached out, and the Jews are fearing for their lives. Go ahead.
And fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes.
So y'all think that any other nations deal with their issues like that? No, that was us. So they said this decree went out, just like Mordecai read.
Did it plug that? Is it on? The mic on?
All right, we back. Had a little technical difficulty. So yeah, that was our custom as a people to fast whenever we were in distress. Whenever we fast for many reasons. We fast for sometimes we just fast just for cleanse, just to renew our spirit. Sometimes we fast when we at a lower state. But that's our atonement for our sins against God, because we always know whenever we going through trying times, we look at it as self-examination, like something we did wrong. So that's how we make an atonement for our sins. That's what Mordecai did. That's what the rest of the Jews did. Go ahead.
Verse 4. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take away his sackcloth from him. But he received it not.
So when she heard about what Mordecai, she tried to comfort him, but he didn't want to be comforted. Go ahead.
Then called Esther for Hatak, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know that it was and why it was.
Go ahead.
So Hatak went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate.
So she sent him to talk to Mordecai. Go ahead.
And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews, to destroy
So
them.
Mordecai told Esther why he was mourning, because Esther, she was in the dark about it. Go ahead. This is why he refused the sackcloth. Go ahead. The raiment, I mean. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Also, he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them.
So Mordecai gave the writing to Esther's servant to show her. Go ahead.
And to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplications unto him, and to make requests before him for her people.
So the king said, asking Esther to go before the king on the behalf of all her people. But look at what she says. Go to go to verse 12. So at this point, I'm gonna just go kind of skim through. The king, Mordecai asks Esther to go before the king, and Esther tells him, she messages him back and says she can't do that, because if she goes before the king without him calling for her, he'll kill her. But Mordecai tells her, you have to do this for your people. He says, consider not your own life, but the life of your people. In which she responds by saying she'll do it. And if she dies, she dies. But she's going to do it. Now jump to verse 12.
Verse 12. Esther chapter 4, verse 12. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews.
So it's basically tell him, like, you think if he gonna kill us all, so you think he's not gonna kill you too? Go ahead.
For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
He said, ain't no better time to go before the king than this right here. Your people need you. Go ahead.
Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me.
So see there again, she said, now you go tell Mordecai to gather all the Jews in Shushan, and y'all fast on my behalf. Go ahead.
And neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day.
She said, do it for 3 days. Go ahead.
I also and my maidens will fast.
She said,
likewise.
He said, we're going to fast over here too. Go ahead.
And so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him.
So they see that also how she got the spirit of Christ on her. She made so basically she gonna take the fall for her people. She's loving her neighbors as herself. So if I perish, I perish. But she's gonna go before the king. Now go to chapter 5, start at 1. We're getting through it.
Esther chapter 5, verse 1. I came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight.
Because remember, she's not supposed to go before him, but Most High put a spirit on him of a mercy. So she was fine. Remember, and also remember, it comes from the fasting as well. Go ahead.
And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter.
Go ahead.
Then said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be even given to thee to the half of the kingdom.
So he's saying, whatever you want, I'm gonna give to you. Go ahead.
And Esther answered, if it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him.
So her plan, she said, I want you and your highest servant to come to a banquet that I'm preparing for y'all. Go ahead.
Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared.
Go ahead.
And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed.
Go ahead.
Then answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king has said.
So he said, so she said, I want you to come to another banquet. Hold on that spot right there. Jump down to verse 12.
Esther chapter 5, verse 12. Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself.
Haman, like, he proud. He like, ain't the queen, she ain't had nobody in there. It was like VIP. Well, nobody in there but me and the king. Go ahead.
And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king.
She said, I'm invited to another one. I'm just looking good for me. Go ahead.
Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate.
He said, but while I'm dining with the king, Mordecai's still out there living his best life. He's like, I gotta do something about Mordecai. Go ahead.
Then said Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends unto him, let the high and tomorrow let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made.
He said, basically, go to the banquet, but then go and let the king know you want to hang Haman. So he said this thing pleased Haman, because Haman trying to, still trying to kill Mordecai. Watch this. Go to chapter 6, start at 1.
Book of Esther, chapter 6, verse 1. That night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of the records of the chronicles, and they were read before the queen.
So there was a book of records that they kept. And the king, he got so much going on, he had forgot that he keeps records of things that he may forget. Let's read on.
And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus.
So these two men at one point were trying to assassinate the king. Now, let's go get this real quick, because it said the king couldn't sleep that night. He was tossing and turning because the Most High had put that spirit on him. He had brought that spirit of remembrance to him. And he started to remember Mordecai. Let's see what he remembered about him. Go to Esther chapter 2 and get verse 21. 21 through 23.
The book of Esther chapter 2, verse 21. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlain, Bigthana and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth and sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus.
So these two guys sought to kill the king. Go ahead.
And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen. And Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the chronicles before the king.
So the Mordecai had never really seen any money or recognition for that, but Esther, she gave the credit to Mordecai. Mordecai had saved the king's life at one point, so the guy had brought that back to his remembrance. And I remember when they was fasting, everything, nothing was for coincidence. Nothing was without cause. This was all to their salvation. So now that's why he up here tossed and turned in his sleep, because God brought that remembrance to him. Mordecai wasn't just a Jew in his kingdom. The king owed him his life. Now go back to Esther 6 and start at 3.
The book of Esther, chapter 6, verse 3. And the king said, what honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this?
He said, what have I given Mordecai for this? Remember, because it was just written down in the book. He forgot about it. He said, what have I? So God brought to his remembrance. He said, what have I done for Mordecai for this? Did I give him something? Did I send some flowers to his house or something? He said, no, he ain't. He forgot. Go ahead.
Then said the king's servant that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him.
He said, we ain't do nothing for him. Go ahead.
And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him.
So king asked, who's in the court? Because king like, man, somebody out in the court. Who is that out there? And it was Haman. Remember, Haman's people told him to go before the king and ask it, let him know you want to hang Mordecai. But look at what happens here. Go ahead.
So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor?
Now look at how prideful Haman is. He said, so he asking Haman, basically like a little counseling real quick. Hey, Haman, hey, what do we do for those that have done good to us? What do we do? What kind of honor do we give to those? Look at what Haman say. Go ahead.
Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself?
He must be talking about me. Go ahead.
And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delighted to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king uses to wear.
He said, put the royal apparel on that you wear too. Go ahead.
And the horse that the king rideth upon.
He said, let him ride on your horse as well. Now remember, Haman think he talking about himself. Go ahead.
And the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let this apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighted to honor.
He said, put him out there for everybody to see that this man is of great honor. Go ahead, verse 10.
Then the king said to Haman, make haste and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew.
He said, go out there. I want everything you just told me. Go do that for Mordecai. Haman like, what? Imagine Haman sitting there looking crazy as hell. Like,
right.
And remember, he thinking about he want to hang Mordecai. He was just coming to the king to let him know we trying to hang Mordecai real quick.
Right.
Now he hearing Mordecai finna be what they call it, celebrity status. Go ahead.
Verse 11.
Oh, no, we good on my bad. We good on there. Go jump over to chapter 7. Start at 1.
Esther chapter 7, verse 1. So the king and Haman came to banquet with Esther the king. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom.
So now they have sitting having a good time. He said, Queen, what is that you want from me? Go ahead.
Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request.
He said, let my life be given at my petition, and my people at my request. He said, save my life and my people. Now the king don't know what you're talking about. Remember, he gave all that over to Haman. So he's like, okay, go ahead.
For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage.
Go ahead.
Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther, the queen, who is he, and where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so?
So he's like, this is how out of it he is. He's like, well, who threatened my queen? Who bring him? Tell me who he is at once. He's a king mad. Look at what she say. Go ahead.
And Esther said, The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman.
He said it's him right there. It's Haman. That Haman is trying to kill us. Go ahead.
Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen.
So imagine Haman sitting there. They at the banquet. King and the queen. They connected. They more powerful than Haman. And well, right now she is, because she got the king in her hand. And Haman just sitting there looking crazy, probably about a mouthful of food and everything. Like what? What had happened was, king. So she like him right there. You see that coat sitting on that chair. So go ahead, Doc.
Verse 7. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king.
So now the king pissed off. He got up, and Haman sitting there bargaining with the queen, like, please don't. Go ahead.
Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereof Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house?
He said, so are you going to, well, go ahead.
As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face.
So they didn't cover Haman's face. They didn't yoke them up. Go ahead.
And Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold also the gallows, 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon.
So he said, hang him thereon. Yeah, I see how it reversed on him. Everything that Haman prepared for Mordecai, it was reversed. He had prepared for himself to be treated like royalty, but Mordecai got that. And the very gallows that he had created to hang Mordecai with, he ended up getting that. And if you go through and you notice the purification, which is what Purim, the 3 days of fasting, how they fasted for their lives, the Most High heard them. He heard them. But we not done yet just yet. Was that on verse 10?
Verse 10. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified.
So Haman got killed, and the king's wrath was pacified. Now I go to chapter 8, so we can see what became of Mordecai.
Esther chapter 8, verse 1.
Yeah.
On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her.
So Esther was given power over Haman's estate. Okay. Now Esther brought Mordecai, and she told the king who Mordecai was to her. So because the king, he didn't make no connections. Okay. Now she telling him that the same man that saved your life is also my uncle or cousin. Verse 2.
And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman.
So Haman, now Mordecai real powerful. Now Mordecai is over everything that Haman was over. So now him and Esther both in power. See how the Most High work things out? The purification. Let's get verse 9. Start at verse 1. Let's get to the Purim.
Esther chapter 9, verse 1. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Dar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had ruled over them that hated them.
Go ahead. So it says the Jews had ruled over them that hated them, but some of those had still wanted to execute Haman's rule. Go ahead.
The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt.
So remember the decree that Haman had sent out. So it was still some that wanted to go forth with it. But the Jews, now having Mordecai and Esther in power, they were willing to fight back. So they wasn't just going to let them just take their lives. Go ahead.
And no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all the people.
Don't this sound just like Mattathias and them? Don't it sound just like Judah Maccabee? So they had that favor. Go ahead.
And all the rulers of the provinces and the lieutenants and the deputies and officers of the king helped the Jews because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them.
So the king's people was helping the Jews because of their respect towards Mordecai. Go ahead.
For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater.
Max, because remember what it was through the spirit of the wisdom of the Most High. It was Mordecai planning to put Esther in power. Go ahead.
Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter, and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them.
So they fighting back against everybody because these people thought, man, we still gonna kill them, and the Jews like, nah, we fighting back. Go ahead.
And in Shushan the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men.
They was in Shushan. They killing 500 men. Remember, at one point they were scared. Now they got the power. Go ahead.
And Parshantatha, and Delphine, and Aspatha, and Parathon, and Adelia, and Aridatha, and Parmashta.
Those are some names right there. Go ahead.
Right. And Arasai, and Aradai, and Vazjestatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the sons of Hemathada, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hand.
So Haman's family was in this too, trying to kill the Jews, but they wasn't successful. Go ahead.
On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king.
Go ahead.
And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. Or what is thy request further? And it shall be done.
So he asking her, what else do you want? Go ahead.
Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows.
He said, if it please you, let us hang Haman's 10 sons. Okay, when we killed our enemies, we killed all of them. We killed their whole family. We were some gangsters. Go ahead.
Good thing she wasn't no Christianity Christian.
Right, she was.
She was just, we'll pray for him.
Yeah, right. Right, she was.
We just go pray for him, King.
Pray. Yeah, let's show him mercy. That is that spirit right there, man.
What he called it the base at that gay doctrine.
He showed.
Right.
You see that gay? Yeah.
They said we here to destroy that gay doctrine.
That sensitive, soft doctrine. Because y'all see, Esther. I'm glad because Esther had that Holy Spirit. Like she wasn't no punk. She's like, they was gonna kill all of us, kill all of him, wipe out his whole generation.
Right.
Wipe out his whole generation.
To do to us.
Wipe them out. Go ahead.
Verse 14. And the king commanded it so to be done, and the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman 10 sons.
All his sons. Go ahead.
For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan. But on the prey they laid not their hand.
Go ahead.
But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000.
75,000. Go ahead.
But they laid not their hands on the prey.
Go ahead.
On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
Read that again, verse 17.
Verse 17. On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
So this is Purim. This is the purification. This is another memorial of how our enemies came against us, and through fasting and prayer in this instance. And also, if you go back into Esther's purification before she became queen, this is what the Most High heard us and put his and saved us from our enemies. So they declared it another feast day. Go ahead.
Verse 19. Therefore, the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another.
So they sending portions one. They were sending gifts. Go ahead.
And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both near and far.
Let's see what he wrote. Go ahead.
To establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month, Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly.
So it's a 2-day. Purim is 2 days. He said, and Mordecai sent out a decree to all the Jews in the land to keep this day, keep these 2 days with feasting. Go ahead.
Verse 22. As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy.
Because remember, at one point they were sorrowful because their enemies sought to kill them because of Haman. But now they joyful because of the series of events that put Mordecai and Esther in power and gave them their power back to fight back and destroy those that sought to kill them. So now they was joyful. Go ahead.
And from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy.
So that's what we celebrate. We celebrate how we went from sorrow to joy. Go ahead.
And of sending portions one to another and gifts to the poor.
So yeah, and that's nothing on Purim. We give gifts to the poor. You know, we bring out our bring things you don't want no more. Your clothes. You know, maybe trying to do a little spring cleaning, early spring cleaning. Bring out them clothes that you don't wear no more. Not junk, but you know, some you were willing to give away, and that's what we do. Little free will, often let people come up. They can take whatever they want. There's no selling. You know, give there you go. Go ahead, Doc.
Verse 23. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them.
Go ahead.
Because Haman, the son of Hammethai, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is the lot, to consume them and to destroy them.
Go ahead.
But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows.
Go ahead.
Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur.
Say that they call these days Purim after the name of Pur. Go ahead.
Therefore, for all the words of this letter and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to the writing and according to their appointed time every year.
So this Purim is supposed to be kept throughout all your generations. It's 2 days every year. Go ahead.
Verse 28. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed.
Just like we talked about in the Valentine's Day, just like we talk about with all the other holidays. Their days, our people celebrate these days and have no idea where they come from. The Most High left us. That's why we read that Romans 15:4. All things were written for our learning. We know why we celebrate our holy days. We have the blueprint. We have the doctrine is right here in front of us. So Purim was to be kept forever. We forgot our days and start keeping their days that we don't even know. But now we have understanding. This is why we celebrate Purim. It's celebrating our victory over Haman, over our enemies. Go ahead.
Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim.
I mean, it's a law. So they said wrote it with authority, meaning it should be kept forever. Go ahead.
And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus with words of peace and truth.
Go ahead.
To confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoyed them.
So even in this is in the captivities that they was in, they was saying these laws, this holy convocation, this feast day was even certified in the captivities. I mean, even the heathens had to recognize it. Because now the heathens don't recognize our holy days, but even then they had to recognize it too. Go ahead.
And as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry.
See that? And that's what brought it. The matter of that. So this is why we celebrate Purim, because of our fasting and our cry, which gave us the victory over our enemies. Remember, y'all, feasting is pure. I mean, I'm sorry, not feasting. Fasting is purification. Go ahead.
And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book.
All praises to the Most High. So that's the lesson on Purim. If anybody got any questions, feel free to ask them. That's the lesson, first half of tonight. We celebrating Purim in the coming days. I believe it's do we start tomorrow? Thursday and Friday. We celebrating Purim. And now you know why we celebrate it. It is two holy feast days celebrating our victory over our enemies and our purification. Fasting and everything. So all praise to the Most High God. Let's get Matthew 26.
The book of Matthew, chapter 26, verse 6. Now when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this, that this woman have done, be told for a memorial of her.
That is the memorial of Mary Magdalene. Whenever you bring out this word, you have to bring out her memorial, as commander of Christ. He was pleased with her because she repented from all her sins, and she loved Christ, and she kept his laws. So with that I say, shalom.